The Unpredicted Spring, that's what it was last year, as March dragged through to the summer months and the coronavirus turned into COVID. But while we were all behind locked doors, what the combined forces of government laws, peer pressure, infections and all sorts of rules and regulations cannot do is to keep in check the human spirit. Imagination will not be quarantined. And so, in the summer of 2020, the Norman Nicholson Society decided to run a competition, a lockdown poetry competition, inviting poets from all over the world, as it turned out, to put down what they thought about the experience of being in lockdown. And they did. The response was quite wonderful in terms of quality as well as quantity. People contacted us with their poems from not just across the UK, but from all over the world, from Canada to Japan. Now the Norman Nicholson Society, in association with the Book Mill, is proud to launch this anthology of the best of the poems. Kathleen Jones, Fellow of the Royal Literary Fund and a Vice President of the Norman Nicholson Society, judged the competition, and she has edited this anthology.
What I like about the book is the diversity, that we've got people from all over the world with very different experiences of lockdown, people of all age groups, and they're all writing about how they are coping with lockdown and the new things that they're observing, the minute observations. I think the great thing about lockdown was that it helped us to reconnect to the natural world, because it was our only escape route from being locked up within four walls, was to get out into the natural world. And without all the traffic noise and the noise of aeroplanes overhead, we actually started listening to it. And a lot of the poems in this book are about listening to bird song, to the wind in the trees, the water running in the beck. It made us all listen, and that's fantastic. And that is recorded in this.
Kathleen has selected 42 original works for this anthology, plus one other, and that's a very special poem written by Norman Nicholson himself. It's called Early Spring, and it was written during another time of national emergency, the Second World War, at a time when bombing raids were taking place across the UK, and not even Millom up in Cumbria was remote from that. They knew all about the drastic effects of bombing raids. And he talks about the soft cough of death in the waiting lungs, almost as if he knew what was coming in 2020 and 2021.
Being put in situations like this does inspire amazing poetry. People can often put into words in poems that they can't talk, things they can't talk about, deeply internalized things. And so people who hadn't written poetry before sometimes began writing poetry. It always amazes me how poetry is supposed to be so unfashionable. And yet whenever there's some big emotional event in someone's lives, weddings, births, funerals, and other big occasions, people start writing poetry, or they turn to poetry. Everybody has a poem read at their wedding or their funeral. And yet there might be people who've never picked up a book of poetry in their lives. So poetry is something that finds a way of expressing what we otherwise can't express.
The competition was run in two sections, adults and under 18s. Here in this anthology there is no such division. All the poems are printed side by side, they're all poets together.
Some of the poems I liked best were poems written by the under 18 age group. And in fact, the poems that are in this book are by poets who are only 14. And I thought that was amazing. It just thrilled me to see so many young people writing poetry and writing good poetry. And it had that fresh quality of looking at the world that I absolutely loved. So that for me was one of the best things that's come out of this book.
The Unpredicted Spring is available now from Amazon at a price of $10.99, although that may fluctuate somewhat depending on when you actually get onto Amazon. You can also get it direct from the Book Mill at a discounted rate, and if you want to do that, contact them by email. They'll tell you exactly what the price is at that particular time, any other information you need. So the email address is postmaster at thebookmill.co.uk. Postmaster at thebookmill.co.uk.
I mean, some of the poems in the book are about the lives of people who do not live in the United Kingdom. One particular poem is about living in India and coping with the pandemic in India, and just people's everyday lives in different contexts. But the one thing that ran through it all was this common thread of humanity, that wherever we are in the world and whoever we are and whatever age we are, our experiences, we are all human and our experiences are all the same.